Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're diving straight into the deep end of Kundalini. We're going to move right past all the online chaos you've probably seen lately and really ground ourselves in clarity. We're unpacking what the source material actually reveals about this wild intersection between ancient mysticism and modern neurological realities. Let's get right into it. So, it usually starts with this incredibly jarring question. Wait, am I experiencing a massive spiritual breakthrough, or am I literally losing my mind? You know the stories. People's bodies start vibrating, their minds are racing a mile a minute, and emotions just explode out of nowhere. In the literature, they actually call this a spiritual emergency. You can't sleep, you feel this intense energy moving through you, and suddenly that line between profound insight and total psychological breakdown gets really, really blurry. Now, we absolutely have to understand that this is not just some new social media trend. For literally thousands of years, ancient yogis, monks, and mystics have talked about this dormant energy inside of us. But here's the thing, they didn't treat it like a fun game. They gave some serious, stark warnings. They said that treating this hidden force recklessly could completely destabilize your mind. They knew this energy was profoundly powerful, and if you awaken it incorrectly, the consequences are super real. To really get the stakes here, we've got to look past the literal symbols. We're not talking about an actual coiled snake sitting at the base of your spine. Kundalini really represents the massive, totally untapped capacity of our own neurological and emotional systems. The source text suggests that most of us are operating at just a tiny fraction of our potential. It's kind of like using $1 million supercomputer just to calculate your weekly grocery bills. This energy, it represents booting up that entire formidable system all at once. And that brings us to a pretty terrifying modern problem. Ancient traditions treated this whole process as sacred technology. It demanded years of respectful, really gradual preparation. But today, we're literally trying to speed run enlightenment. We're out here using aggressive breathing exercises, trying to force a 7-minute activation just for a quick cosmic high. And we're totally ignoring the energetic fallout that inevitably comes when you bypass years of vital groundwork. Because when people force these experiences, the fallout is severe. We really need to validate that these spiritual emergencies are no joke. Even the legendary psychologist Carl Jung warned about this exact thing. He pointed out that if unconscious material surfaces too quickly, it can completely overwhelm the ego. But simply, if you force your mind to open up faster than your emotional stability can actually handle it, well, that's a one-way ticket straight to psychological fragmentation and total chaos. The sources paint this incredibly visceral picture that I just love. Imagine trying to push nuclear-level electricity through the standard wiring of your everyday suburban house. Now, the nuclear power itself isn't bad. Power is just power, right? The actual problem is the house's capacity to handle it. It's exactly the same with your nervous system. When a totally overstimulated, anxious, modern nervous system suddenly gets blasted with intense spiritual practices, it literally just fries the circuits. It really all boils down to this. You wouldn't attempt to climb Mount Everest wearing a pair of beach flip-flops. No way. Yet, every single day, people are out there trying to force cosmic consciousness right after drinking some celery juice and watching a couple of reels online. They're completely ignoring the required psychological groundwork. They want that ultimate peak experience, but they haven't done a single day of base camp training. Section 1. The science behind the surge. Okay, so when we look past the ancient metaphors and peer right into our own biology, there are 3 distinct things happening here. First off, these intense practices push your autonomic nervous system into hyperarousal. That perfectly explains all the physical shaking, the sudden heat, the intense vibrations. Second, deep meditation physically alters the brain's default mode network. That's the region responsible for your literal sense of self, which is exactly why people feel their identity starting to blur. And third, these practices forcefully pull up deeply stored somatic trauma. Our bodies hold on to unprocessed emotional memories, guys. So when your awareness suddenly spikes, all that suppressed pain surfaces at once. The numbness you've relied on for years finally shatters. And honestly, that feels terrifying. Section 2. Shattering common spiritual myths. Understanding this biological reality completely shatters so many of the wild myths spreading online right now. Your ego wants to tell you that awakening makes you super special, right? But the source texts show it actually just brings quiet humility. True wisdom quietly washes the dishes. The internet tells you more intensity is better, but the absolute truth is that deep calmness is way more evolved. People love to think spirituality is an escape hatch from their human problems. But reality check, you still have to pay your bills and you still have to heal your relationships. True spirituality is about deeper participation in life. And finally, the modern world constantly screams that faster is better. But think about it. A tree forced to grow overnight is just going to collapse under its own weight. Gradual growth is the only path that's actually sustainable. Section 3. A framework for safe awakening. So, if the goal isn't to force this energy awake, but rather to become actually capable of holding it safely, this source material gives us a pretty strict 6-step framework. Step 1. Ground your physical body. Literally, sleep well, eat right, go outside and walk barefoot. Step 2 is emotional cleaning. You simply cannot awaken deeply while simultaneously suppressing your inner pain. Only after doing that do you move to step 3, which is moderate, gentle breath work. And we mean gentle, no forcing mystical experiences. Step 4 is developing witness consciousness. That's learning to just observe your thoughts without becoming totally imprisoned by them. Step 5 is serving others. This is a big one because it keeps the ego in check and keeps you grounded in reality. And finally, step 6, integration. I really want to pause on that final step for a second, because integration is honestly where most people completely fail. Look, a profound insight is entirely useless if it doesn't actually change your behavior. False awakening is basically just collecting mystical experiences, like their Pokemon cards, just so you can brag about them online. True integration, that means those intense experiences actually make you a calmer person under stress. They make you kinder in conflict. They make you significantly less reactive in your everyday, messy human reality. Ultimately, when we zoom out and look at the big picture, we realize that all these different disciplines are really just different maps for the exact same mountain. Whether you want to call it Buddhist awakening, psychological integration, neurological regulation, or philosophical self-realization, guys, they're all pointing toward the exact same human journey. It's this universal shift from living in unconscious fear and survival mode into a state of intelligent, deeply connected presence. As we get near the end of this explainer, I want to leave you with this beautifully grounding reminder from the texts. A flower does not force itself to bloom. Think about that. It simply creates the right conditions and lets nature intelligently do the rest. Maybe your soul isn't broken at all. Maybe it's just unfolding, slowly and carefully, and you just need to provide the right conditions for it to really thrive. So, as we wrap things up today, I want you to ask yourself this one provocative question, and I want you to be really honest with your answer. Are you just chasing awakening like a drug to escape your reality, or are you finally ready to use this incredible hidden potential to become fully, brilliantly, and consciously human right inside of it? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep grounding yourself, and keep evolving.